Welcome back, guys. My guest this week, he is a former Strike Force world champion. He had a 15-fight winning streak. He's the host of the Fight Back podcast. He is the world's most dangerous vegan, and he's my buddy playing paintball. It is Jake Shields.
What's up?
Hey, good to have you on here, man.
This will be good. We've
For
known
sure.
each other for a few years now and haven't done each other's podcast yet.
We
I'll have to interview you too.
We have so many interesting conversations at dinner.
And at paintball.
At a paintball. That I thought it was interesting to like bring them up here. And then even we had a really interesting conversation. It was you and me at XS, right? And Andrew Tate was there and he had his security there and he was like way off in the back and you came up there and we were having a conversation about like different political ideas. But I just thought it would be interesting to bring some of these conversations to the show. First thing I want to know is, so I didn't realize you were from San Francisco originally, and your connection with Nate and Nick Diaz, and how you started off in jiu-jitsu. You said you first went to a school and Chuck Liddell beat you up.
Yeah, so a little complicated. So originally I wrestled all through high school, and then had a partial, I went to wrestle in junior college. I didn't have the grades or anything for regular college. I didn't know all this stuff when I was going to school. I didn't know I had certain classes to take. At the end, I wasn't planning on going to college, but at the end of, I did good in wrestling. I'm like, you know what, I want to go wrestle in college. So I went there and actually went down to San Luis Obispo. And I was like, you know, I was a punk. I always wanted my street fights from wrestling. So I was a great street fighter. And I saw Chuck Liddell. He had his mohawk, his Kempo tattoos. And I'm like, oh, this guy's a fucking dork. I'm gonna beat this guy's ass. So, you know, went in there, went to the gym, like, oh, let's spar. So Chuck he's a lot bigger than me too.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how good of a wrestler he was. He was also a top college wrestler. I was thinking he was a Kempo karate guy, but he has a type of karate that's completely different than like the katas and shit. It's like a real kickboxing, you know, he had like 20 kickboxing or maybe 30 kickboxing fights before, way bigger than me. So he just beat the shit out of me. And it was good. I needed that humbling. He was kind of cool though, because he actually knocked me out with a liver shot versus a head kick, you know, and that hurts. But after he knocked me out, he's sitting there standing above me being like, don't, because he hit me the first time liver, I kind of grabbed it, and he comes and just hit me like 3 times in the liver. And I'm thinking, what an ass.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't ever show you're hurt.
Yeah.
And after that, I just kind of, I asked Chuck if he would train me. He's like, no. He's like a cold guy. And I'm like, well, can I come in and train with you a little bit? And he's like, yeah, you can like shadow me. So I pretty much shadowed him for a couple months. And then I got a text message, you know, of him inviting me to go train at Big Bear with, you know, Dana White, the Petita brothers. They had just bought in it. And I was just so ecstatic because Chuck's a very quiet, stoic guy. I had no idea if he liked me or I didn't know if I was bugging the shit out of him, you know, following him around. I'm thinking, fuck, dude, I'm just bugging this guy. So when he invited me to come train with him for a week or 2 weeks, it was like, oh, yeah, he at least doesn't hate me. He's invited me to come. So that was, you know, we became super close after that. And I watched him. He wasn't really that famous, and I watched him to turn into a super star. And that was cool. The first person I watched turn famous didn't change at all.
Chuck comes to all of my charity events.
Yeah, awesome.
I've interviewed Chuck like maybe 6-7 times. There's a Smash Global event. That was the first time I've ever met him. And then I was like, oh, this is a different human. Like I remember seeing him, and he is retired at this point, and his hands are humongous. He's got these broad shoulders like an NFL defensive end.
He just walks
and he's big. Like you can tell if I hit this dude, he's like, it's very clear like he had the physical attributes to be somebody to dole out punishment. And when you hear like ground and pound, right? This idea there. That's another thing. I remember watching the first 4 UFCs, right? Hoist Gracie wins like 3 of them, and you had sumo wrestlers in there, and you had Ken Shamrock is like roided up when he's in there, and there's all these different body types. And then one thing I noticed was over time, over the last, you know, we're at UFC 330 something, is that you start to see a similar body type. This like leaned out dude who has like really strong shoulders, big hands, can take a punch, big traps. And it's like there doesn't seem to be a variation of body types. It kind of seems like there's one. And then I watched, you know, Chuck Liddell and Iceman, Randy Couture, and I watch these guys like fight each other, and you just see like it's not all jiu-jitsu and it's not all boxing. It seems to be this like hybrid middle ground that everybody found, and that was the best. George St-Pierre, guys like that, you started to see that. But originally it was like you had guys going in there legitimately trying to use like
one martial art. Because it started out, it was like single martial arts. Now it's mixed martial arts. All the top fighters are doing at least 5 or 6 different martial arts. And we know how to combine them too. So it's like you can box and wrestle, but when you mix the two, it changes it up. And same with like jiu-jitsu, when you add punches, completely different. A lot of these current jiu-jitsu guys don't train with punches, and they just get wrecked when they start getting punched. So the old jiu-jitsu was all about martial art. So they would always train with, not always, but sometimes train with punches. Some of these current guys never train with punches.
Yeah, you look at Hoist Gracie when he won those first this first 3 times he won, his arms are tiny. Like he is so the MMA fighter ended up being bigger than Royce Gracie, but smaller than what's his face?
Chuck or
not Chuck. I just said his name. I can't
Randy?
remember. No, I can't believe I just said his name.
GSP, who we talked about.
No, GSP is part. Like those guys are actually what I'm talking
all
about.
these guys are Jack we're talking about, but I'm trying to think who is not Jack you mentioned.
No, I just said
Royce doesn't look. Yeah, I think they deliberately put him there for that reason because his was it his brother, I believe, was the guy starting the UFC, and they won.
Ken Shamrock. I'm saying Ken Shamrock was too big.
He's jacked. Yeah.
Ken Shamrock was too big. He's an NFL. He was drafted by the San Diego Chargers to play linebacker.
I didn't know that.
So Ken Shamrock was too big, and Royce Gracie was too small. And then you started to see, like almost like natural selection, the same sort of body type. And then everyone had trained jiu-jitsu, everyone had done kickboxing, and it wasn't like that in the beginning.
Yeah,
so
it's changed so much. And I've been involved in the sport. I think my first fight was '99. I've just seen massive changes. So I was able to have a 20-year professional career, but I had to be evolving with the sport.
Yeah,
the sport, a lot of guys can't keep that up when they're constantly. Because imagine the sport only started at '93. So 93 to '99. It was still raw. Like it did a huge evolution when I started, but the evolution from when I first started to now is insane. And I was able to keep up with it.
There was a point where it was illegal in the United States, and they had to do it in other places.
When I first started fighting, it wasn't illegal in the United States, but it was legal in most states. So we had to go fight in Indian land. I think it might have been legal in several states because Indian land or Native American, Indian, whatever, they follow national law, not state law. So all my fights in the beginning were on Indian reservations.
I remember John McCain having some massive problem with the idea of MMA.
He was pushing against it. I don't remember the details. It wasn't in the politics back in the day.
Yeah,
which
he called it
like
fighting or something like that. Yeah,
he's a real scumbag.
So we have the thing with Nick and Nate. You meet them in jiu-jitsu, or you knew them before?
I was in, like I said, I was in San Obispo. Then I switched to wrestle in San Francisco State, and Cesar Gracie. I saw their guys dominating all the small shows.
Yes,
they didn't have big stars yet. It was guys like David Terrell, Gil Castillo. I don't think I'd seen Nick fight yet. So I went to Caesar's and I joined there, and then. Wasn't the best guy there, but me and Nick were the 2 best new guys at the gym.
Yeah.
So we were highly competitive with each other. But like it's weird that we were so competitive, but stayed such close friends. It's very hard to do that, to have someone to be your rivalry and one of your best friends. But we just drove each other to greatness through our competitiveness.
Yeah.
So and then I brought this guy, Gil Melendez in, who was my training partner at the wrestling gym. And that's when Nick's like, well, I'm going to bring my little brother, Nate. And we would make Gil and Nate spar, and then me and Nick would spar. And it was this highly competitive environment, but we managed to stay close friends, never hurt each other bad. So it was an interesting training.
At that point, is the dominant strategy mostly jiu-jitsu? Because you said you're talking to the Gracies, and the Gracies weren't as big as strikers as...
We started out all primary grapplers, and then we worked on our stand-up as we went. A lot of times Nick and Nate are probably more known for their boxing, or equally at least now, but we started out, all pure grapplers, and we learned striking as we went. We kind of helped each other. We had the support system where we help coach each other, help push each other, spar. It's very rare in fighting. You see all these guys; they're always moving around, switching teams. But we all came up together, stayed together, and it's very, very rare to see that loyalty in MMA.
And you guys made a decision whenever you are in the same organization to never be in the same weight class because there's no chance you'd ever fight each other.
Yeah, like me and Nick made it a deal. I mean, I guess I did with Gil and Nate too, but they were the weight below us at the time. Me and Nick were the same weight, and they fought the weight below. Nate's like probably bigger than me now is what's fun. But we all made deals not to fight each other. And there was one point where me and Nick were in Strikeforce together. Nick was the Strikeforce 170-pound champ. And so we didn't even have the conversation. I just went to Strikeforce and said, move me up to 85s, and I won the belt there. It's like there was no way I was going to fight Nick. It worked out good because Strikeforce had, really good 85-pounders like Robbie Lawler I beat there, Dan Henderson, a few other big names. So I wanted to fight the big names at that point anyways.
What do you think when you see like how boxing, obviously boxing and MMA fighting against each other, sort of like the competition, and then you see the biggest draw in boxing now is the Paul brothers, right? And then you see the idea of Jake and Logan fighting each other. That was the first thing I thought about when you said you would never fight Nick or Nate. Watching Jake and Logan fight each other like for a payday, and it just seemed kind of strange.
That's weird. Yeah, I couldn't imagine fighting my brother. That's just something I could never do.
Yeah.
That's they must not like each other. Like I have a brother I'm really close to. The idea of fighting him for money, I get it. You're getting paid, but there's other people you could fight.
Yeah.
And Nick, was like a brother to me, and we were too close to ever fight each other. It would have destroyed our friendship. Like, I think if I fought someone, it would destroy your friendship. Is what happens is if you win, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you lose, it's hard. You're not gonna be able to be friends with that person after, so it's gonna ruin your friendship. You know, let's say if I fight my brother and I beat him up, he's not gonna be cool with that after.
Yeah.
You know, my brother's older than me, huge ego. He's tough as hell.
Yeah.
He was never a professional fighter, but if I went and beat him up in a fight, it would probably cause an animosity towards us. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it. That's what me and Nick decided. We wanted to be training partners instead. And he'd have dumb reporters be like, "Oh, so would you fight your brother?" And I see Nick just walk out of interviews before, like, "I'm not dealing with this bullshit."
Yeah. So here's the other thing I wanted to ask. So I've read different people's theories on this, with like say NFL linebackers like getting hit in the head that many times and then just getting back up, or running backs. It seems that there are certain individuals who can process pain in a different way. Does that make sense? Like you understand, 99% of the population, if they take a liver shot, they're done.
Down,
Or if they get hit really hard in the head, even though they may have the stamina to get back up, they're not going to get back up, right? What do you think it is about MMA fighters and their ability to process pain? Is it, the term is analgesia, meaning they don't feel the pain, or is it a function where the pain makes them angry, or is it the adrenaline that makes them just numbs the pain? What do you think
There's
it is?
a combination of things.
Yeah.
I think it's partial. For one, we build like calluses, like our legs and calves, where it stops hurting. I think also you learn to like roll with the punches a little more. You do become tougher sparring. Your adrenaline's up because these punches typically don't hurt that bad in a fight. A liver shot hurts really bad still. That's why you want to go to the body sometimes in fights, because it just knocks the wind out of you still.
Yeah.
But headshots typically don't hurt when your adrenaline's going up. You just have so much adrenaline. But it's weird, like, you know, I used to get in a lot of street fights, and then I stopped obviously being a professional fighter, and then I got in a few street fights after professional fighting, and you're just like, you hit someone, they just drop. But then you realize a lot of times fighters were knowing how to kind of roll with the punch, or you can like you can look in, or you can roll away. These things we're just doing naturally. Where a lot of times we're taking in some of the absorption. Like a lot of times they say a punch that knocks you out is the one you don't see coming.
Yeah.
Because it comes in and pops you, and that's because the ones we see coming, we know how to either roll away from it or roll into it and take some of the power off. And we're just doing these things without even thinking about it because it's so much sparring.
Yeah. Is there a point where it's like you're in the middle of the fight and this guy is doing damage, you're doing damage, but you don't feel it till the next day?
Oh yeah. You're usually sore as shit the next day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes even fights that aren't that tough, you pull something you don't
Are you
realize.
surprised? Like the next day you're like, yo, I don't remember getting hit this hard. Is it ever like that?
Oh yeah, it's happened sometimes.
Yeah.
There's been times just being waking up so sore. There was one time I had 2 really tough fights in the same night. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I fought Yushin Okami, he was a really good UFC fighter, 85s, and then I fought this guy Carlos Condit, who ended up being a UFC champion. So I fought both these guys back to back the same night, just 2 grueling fights, and I was just exhausted. It was in Hawaii. My whole corner, we'd always go party after pick up chicks, and that corner had to drag me out. I think I still got one of the ring girls, but it's like, but I was like, oh, I don't want to go out. And it was like, all right, take some drinks. Like, okay.
Well, since you bring it up, I'll skip ahead here because this is one of the main things I wanted to ask you about, which is it seems I'm curious about the type of girls that tend to be attracted to MMA fighters, and the fact you mentioned that a lot of MMA fighters try to steal each other's girl. And then my favorite part was the part where you said is when you steal each other's girl, it's not, you should be mad at the dude. You should be mad at the girl.
You're mad at the girl, exactly. Me and Rampage were laughing about that because
Yeah.
we had a couple of the same girls, and Rampage called me about it. I think I was on air. He called me out. He's like, you guys slept with my girls. I was like, oh shit. He's like, oh, I was mad at them, not you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I chewed those chicks out. And me and it was the same guys with the same taste. Me and Josh Thompson. Me and Mayhem. You see the guys that have games. You're just like, you hear them mention. After a while, it's like I hear these girls mention like Mayhem or Josh Thompson. I just feel like, fuck you too.
Yeah.
There's certain girls that are fighter groupies.
Yeah.
And then but for me, you know, obviously I would hook up with them occasionally. But there's also, I think you say that what type of girls are attracted to it.
Yeah.
I think most girls are attracted to it. It's just most of them aren't out seeking it out.
Yeah.
So it's a plus, even if the girls that think it's not. It's like, especially if they realize like you're a little cool, you're not like a total meathead because you're a fighter. I remember girls always like, oh, you're like normal. I didn't expect you to be so like normal when they're around you. So it's like, you know, we've talked about girls before. You obviously know a lot about women.
Yeah.
And they're highly into like status. Like they're not even aware of this, but that's what they're into. So if you could show a high status, but you also have a cool personality and stuff too, it's going to help a lot. Like, you're well aware of that.
You guys show so many survival characteristics too. So you think about her ancestor, seeing the guy with the broad shoulders who's willing to do massive amounts of violence. The tattoos show like tribal alignment. The scars show survivability, right? And then the hunter eyes, like there's all these like masculine traits that women are going to look to, and some women are extremely attuned to that. Now, some women like more like the Machine Gun Kelly, more feminine look, but the girls who like the masculine look, I would imagine, would be extremely attracted to MMA fighters because, especially a woman. So this is one thing I remember meeting this one girl, and she used to date this huge bodybuilder, like 270 pound, like huge roid head. And she explained to me, she was like, she was sexually assaulted. And because of that, every guy she wanted to date after was 6'4" and humongous. And she was specifically looking for a protector, like you said before. And I could see like a certain type of woman who's been through something like that, but specifically looking for a man who they know would conduct a massive amount of violence and is looking for a Marine. They're looking for a police officer. They're looking for an MMA fighter, like a specific type like that. So I can see that.
It makes sense from like, you know, an ancestral point. Like you said, it's they're not thinking about this stuff consciously, but it's in their DNA. And it's constantly girls always tell me like, oh, I feel safe about you. And I think it's partially because I'm a fighter. I think it's like just small things maybe other guys don't do, like put them on the inside. If you see a shady guy, I'll step into it. I think a lot of guys that don't do this type of shit, it should, to me, I never even thought about it. It just seems like common sense. Like a place like San Francisco, I see a homeless guy step in between to kind of push the guy.
Growing up in San Francisco, I would be very aware of my surroundings as well.
But I think a lot of guys like don't, like they're like kind of cowardly and don't like, to me, this is always something I never even noticed. But then girls have mentioned it quite a bit. You're like, oh, these guys like pay attention to this type of shit because the girls do. So guys, you know, pay attention to that type of shit. Little things girls pick up on, like make sure she feels safe.
I think the other thing is there's this debate, there's this thing in evolutionary psychology, this concept of male overperception bias, which is men think they need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock. Women prefer Brad Pitt in Fight Club or Brad Pitt in Troy. Like they prefer that look. And then when you look at the most survivable body type, like in MMA, like for instance,
it's not the bodybuilder.
It is not the bodybuilder, right?
So we have a little bit of muscle, but we're not like overly jacked. And that's also what the girls prefer. It's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that from like a fighting standpoint, but that's interesting.
I would also imagine a pre-plasticine hunter would have a similar physique.
Yeah, because you have to run for a long time. You have to have good cardio. I've never thought about that perspective. But that is interesting.
I mean, so again, like natural selection isn't just biology. You'll have natural selection in places like the physique of the MMA fighter or the physique of the boxer or the physique of the NFL player. Eventually, you're going to find that there's this one type. All NFL linemen are all at least 300 pounds, right? You start to see the same thing over and over again. So you would figure out with the survivability, what is the most survivable type that can do the most physical damage and also be the long distance hunter. And it would be the leaner body type, under 13% body fat. Like, there's one study that shows a 1.65 to 1 hip to waist ratio or shoulder to waist ratio in men is what women find to be the most attractive. And it would make sense. The opposite is true, by the way. The most fertile hip to waist ratio for women is 0.72. And they even have blind men describe their favorite body type, and they show 0.72. Like, it's crazy. Men instinctually pick the most fertile women body type.
These things are deeply ingrained in us. And that's a lot of people don't understand all this dating stuff. Some of it we're conscious thinking about it, but more of it is just like deeply ingrained in us. Things that you're looking for without even realizing it, like the body types for being fertile, like you said. That's why men are typically attracted to younger girls. We get constant for it, but it's like, I don't think we think about it this way, but it's because they're more fertile at a younger age. You know, girls are 20, 22, you start getting the 30s. It doesn't mean, I think a lot of women hear this and they get insulted. It doesn't mean, oh, you don't think these women can still be attractive. It's just, if you have to pick between the two, if it was the only thing you're given, men are typically going to grab the younger women. Just like it's like no girl is going to date. They're not necessarily gold diggers, but if they could pick between the exact same guy, rich and poor, they're going to take the guy rich. So we're smart enough not to like throw a fit about this, but you mentioned to women, they can't like process it. It's weird.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's a really big difference between men and women is like, if I were to explain to you that men that have had more sexual partners before they get married are more likely to cheat, you'd probably agree, and it's not offensive. Like, I'm not offended by that. I understand that. But if you explain the same thing to women, hey, if you sleep with a bunch of dudes before you get married, you're more likely to cheat. They're offended by that. Like, that's a massive difference.
So it's weird how girls get offended by the dating logic. I think maybe because it's always been so easy for them, we've had to struggle almost, man. We had to learn women. So it's like, oh, they like taller guys, or this not could be like, oh no, that's not true. Or they like rich guys. Well, when I was broke, I still got girls. Girls resort to this. And it's like, but if they could pick between you rich and poor, they're going to take you rich. It doesn't mean you can't be a broke dude and get tons of chick if you have good personality and game, particularly if you're younger, if you're fun. There's lots of traits women look for, but there's certain ones that they're always going to prefer. Yeah.
The overall guys, the guys who are really good at the sport in MMA, do you find them, because I've heard this before, like, because I grew up around a lot of pilots in the Air Force, and the fighter pilots were the most nerdy, like super detail-oriented people I'd ever met. Race car drivers are actually very risk-averse. It's very strange. It's not what you would think. And then I've heard a lot of MMA guys are actually very non-violent outside of the ring.
Oh yeah, it's rare you're getting in fights outside the ring because you're fighting all day in there. You don't want to go out and get in street fights. Like,
you also feel like you have nothing to prove.
Exactly. I used to fight a lot before, but I don't have anything to prove now.
Yeah.
The only time I would get in fights if people are like talking to my friends. I'm way more defensive of my friends than myself for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Just because I have nothing to prove is probably why.
Yeah.
But I see like big guys trying to bully my friends. That's one of the things that got me into fights. It's like, oh, fuck that.
Back to what you said before about stealing each other's girls. Has there ever been a guy you didn't like and he tries to steal your girl, you tries to steal his, or something in that arena?
Me and Jason Mayhem Miller, he was the bully beatdown guy. He's pretty big. We were fighting over girls for a second because for some reason we kept, messing around with some of the same girls. Oh, I remember before I fought him, some hot chick was like, oh, beat his ass. He's my ex. I don't like him. And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to beat his ass. But then, I'm taking you out after.
Yeah.
So, and he was like talking. So it just turned into a little, he came in after I beat Dan Henderson as a massive fight on CBS. He jumped in talking. He was training with Henderson at the time. So me, Nick, Nate, Gilness, all of them were like, oh, a brawl's about to break off. And we just all teed off on Mayhem, but I guess Henderson's guys didn't like him that much. So they're just like, whatever, and let us beat him up. In his defense, he never bitched about it.
Yeah.
We did straight jump him. We jumped him for sure.
I watched that, and he was really like playing with fire. Like getting in there and saying something behind you would have been fine, but he steps into you, right? Like if I didn't know who that was, I'd be like, oh, we're about to fight right now.
No, exactly.
Like, nothing personal, but it's very clear to me you're trying to attack me. That's what it would seem
and
to me.
my adrenaline was up after fight, these type of things. I was just talking to Nate the other day, and he's like, you know what? I bet the strike force sent him in there and set him up.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I'm like, oh, shit, he probably didn't like hop the cage or anything. He walked right in. They probably sent him in there to try to build the fight.
Yeah.
And then we just jumped his ass.
I also thought something was interesting, the idea of American Jiu-Jitsu. Right? So the t-shirt you have on right now, and this concept of like there were certain segments of the Brazilian population that didn't allow you to feel included. So you're like, well, we're just going to call it American Jiu-Jitsu because it's different from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
You know, exactly, because when I first started, there was a big rivalry between the Americans and Brazilians, which I get along with the Brazilians now. But in the time, I started calling it American Jiu-Jitsu because I know I've been promoted to purple belt through Cesar Gracie, but I didn't really train with a gi. So they were trying to say my belt was fake. I did go put on the gi, though, and just dominate the Pan American Championships, tapped everyone out. So I was like, oh, I guess it ain't that fake. So I just but after that, I'm like, oh, I don't train with the gi, so I'll call it American Jiu-Jitsu, which is kind of the different style of blending American wrestling with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It is funny that so many Brazilians got offended over the term, but they stole Jiu-Jitsu from Japan.
Yes.
It's Japanese arts that they refined and changed. And Americans have taken it, we've refined and changed it. It's more aggressive for MMA, mixing the wrestling. It's a lot of people are calling it American Jiu-Jitsu now, but I was the first person by about 2004, I started calling it that. And now the last like 5-6 years, a lot of people have kind of like taken the term, but that's fine.
Rampage is another guy that you're friends with. I've gotten a chance to hang out with him several times, like super charismatic guy. And then just talking to him, you said he messaged you before. He's like, oh, we're talking to the same girls.
Yeah, I think a few times, more than once. We're just like, God damn it.
When I was thinking like MMA personalities, this guy is so gregarious. He's so funny when you listen to him talk. I could just like listen to this guy talk forever.
No, it's fun because typically there's a few guys. The other guys that I was getting the same worlds, we look exactly the same. White guy, same build. The Rampage is the one, nothing alike, obviously. But I just think, like I said, he's a fun personality. So for some reason we clashed, or not really fight, because we more laughed about it and talked to the girls at each other, because we know it's never the guy's fault. Yeah, it's weird when like if your girl cheats on you, you want to peep the other guy. It's like, dude, I'd be pissed at my chick. Yeah, I'm not trying to beat a dude up. It ain't his responsibility. Yeah,
it's not other, especially if you're dating a hot girl. It's not
other guys are trying to sleep with her.
Yeah, it's not other guys' responsibility to not hit on your girl. It's your girl's responsibility to protect the sanctity of her mouth, her nipples, her vagina, and her butthole. That is her job to do that.
100% agree.
Yeah,
so I would never be mad if a dude like slept with a chick. I'd be mad at myself or mad at her, but not like
if I'm close enough to the guy, then I shouldn't be talking to his girl. But
100%. Yeah. No, if it's a friend, I'd be mad at a guy. That's a different story.
Yeah,
I just slap a friend in the face all the time because he was hitting on like my chick, and it's just like disrespectful. You know, it's like, bro, I beat him up. I had to slap him because he did it like 2 or 3 times. Like, dude, you get drunk, you start trying to hit on the girls that I'm with. It's like, it's just annoying. But then the girls didn't sleep with me. They just tell me like, hey, your friend's hitting on me. It's like, this dude's just a douchebag. You don't like hit on your friend's girls. You know.
How often do you have guys who come in there who are just like freak athletes and then they slowly adopt the concept of jiu-jitsu versus the guys who come in as technicians and then start working on their stand-up striking? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the freak athlete.
Like I would see Rampage more as an athletic brawler who eventually learns jiu-jitsu, and you more as a guy who learned jiu-jitsu who got into MMA.
I would say more often or not, the athletic guys don't become the big stars. And I've coached a lot of years. A lot of times you get these athletic guys come in, they look so good the first day. All the coaches are like, oh, this guy's going to be great. But because they're so gifted, they don't have the work ethic. There's obviously exceptions to that, you know? So if you have a great athletic guy like a GSP, if it does work his ass off, then you have a superstar.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
most
So I
cases,
was going to
you
say
get
GSP is an example of the athlete who does
also
put in all the work.
technical. Exactly. He's the perfect example of both. But it's rare that you have that guy that's a crazy athlete and puts in the hard work.
Yeah.
So typically you get these guys that are, you know, good athletes, but not like the elite athletes end up being the champions because they have the work ethic and stuff.
Yeah, GSP looks like there's other sports he could have been a professional at
he's
too.
Insanely explosive and so much fast twitch muscle, but then doesn't gas. Because a lot of these guys with all that fast twitch muscle, they get fatigued.
It's so crazy. I'm reading. So Joe Heinrich is a professor of evolutionary biology at Harvard. So evolutionary biology just basically goes over not the psychology part, but just like what are the physical adaptations that humans have. And the main things are we're long distance runners. We have sweat glands that we have more sweat glands than any other mammal on the planet. There's different stuff like that. But one of the things he talks about is fast twitch versus slow twitch.
Yeah.
And if you would think about it genetically, you'd want everyone to be fast twitch. And then you come to the realization the purpose of the slow twitch muscle is to track the gazelle over 3, 4, 10 miles.
Yeah.
And then eventually, because by quadrupedal furry animals, prey animals, if you throw a spear into them and they run away, they don't have sweat glands, so eventually they're going to die of cardiac arrest. Yeah, they're going to die of fatigue, and that's how humans became the apex predators on the planet. So you like what you said before, the slow twitch guys naturally are going to be able to have more stamina, but they're not going to be able to run a 4.340, right? And then the fast twitch guys are going to have a stamina issue.
Exactly. So you want to ideally you have a mix between the two. Great examples of guys with more slow twitch muscles that are a phenomenal fighter are the Diaz brothers. They don't have a ton of that explosive, but they just keep that pace in your face where they break you. So you have to learn to fight with what you have. The Diaz brothers do an amazing job of adapting to that, just in your face, just trade with you and break you. If you have a lot of fast twitch muscle, you want to fight in a little more explosive bursts. Either look for a big knockout slam or you fight in bursts. You got to slow the pace down a little bit. So depending on what muscle type you have to, be intelligent and adjust. And if you're a coach, you have to do that. You get a lot of these coaches or coaching guys exactly the same.
All right, so you win 15 fights in a row.
Yeah.
From the beginning, was there a point where you're like, let's just say you win the first 3. Is there a point in here like this is easy? I think I can keep doing this. Is there a point where you're feeling like I'm getting lucky? Is there a point where you're feeling like the competition's not as good? 15 fights in a row
it was
is
all
pretty,
like top
pretty,
guys. I was feeling pretty invincible at that time. That's the time in my life when it's all I did was just train. Eat, sleep, train, fighting. So I'm beating guys, like Carlos Condit, Dan Henderson, Robbie Lawler, just beating monsters through this strain. I just started going out there and feeling invincible.
How underdog are you in some of these fights? And then at what point are you no longer the underdog?
It was really split. Sometimes I'd be big favorite, sometimes underdog. I prefer being the underdog, less pressure. I was really surprised when I fought Dan Henderson. Henderson's phenomenal. I moved up weight to fight him, but I went in there like a 4-1 underdog, and I was on a huge, 13 win streak at that time. So I felt disrespected. Went in and just dominated him. I think a lot Robbie Lawler. I don't know if I think I was a slight underdog on that. Went out there, just dominated him first round. So it's I prefer being the underdog. There's some fights you're like a 4-1 favorite, and you're like, oh, shit, that's a lot of pressure.
So you're in prime form. So before a fight, let's just say you have a fight in 6 months. When does training camp start? What does your diet become? What is your sleep routine? Do you go out at all? Like what happens in the lead up?
I trained year round, so I was always in good shape. But then 8 weeks before, really looking back, I probably could have done 6-week camps because I was already in such good shape. But 8 weeks, I would stop drinking, get serious. I would still go out a little bit, but not as much. You go out a little less. Usually, the last couple of weeks, you won't be going out because you start getting yourself in fight mode where your mind, where you start becoming kind of an athlete, more irritable. Like you start to get withdrawn. You're cutting weight. You're not eating as much, so you become more of an asshole.
Do you have a certain calories per day? Like what is the diet like?
I didn't have an exact thing that I tracked, being vegetarian, but I would definitely eat less food, try to eat healthier. Cutting out like cheese. Sometimes I'd go vegan before the fights. So it was because I was vegetarian. Typically, I would eat eggs.
Yeah,
the eggs actually. I think even the eggs in was actually probably better for the protein source though. Yeah, but I would cut like the cheese and stuff and milk.
How much cardio are you doing?
A lot.
Yeah.
So I would train like 4 to 5 hours a day.
I did jiu-jitsu on and off for eight years, and I will tell you the number one problem I had was the cardio. Some dude sitting on my head was the worst. Not being able to breathe was way worse than the joint locks.
It's the worst, dude. If you're like, gassing is the worst thing. If someone's on, if you're in great shape, especially if you can keep moving, they can't hold you down. But if you're fatigued and someone's crushing you, big dude, it's miserable.
Yeah, it's the
So for
worst.
me, like, I didn't run year round, but I would run when I started camp. I don't enjoy running. I've never enjoyed running.
Sucks.
I'll never enjoy running, but when it helps for your cardio.
How much you running?
I would usually run like 3 times a week,
Yeah.
and it would my runs would vary. I'd hit a minimum of 3 miles, sometimes up to like 5 miles. And
Crazy.
But I'd try to do a few sprints too. Like, the sprints, the most miserable sprint is the 400, which is a full lap on the track. It's just miserable because the first 200 yards you kind of truck through, then your body starts giving out, and you're like halfway, and you're just like, it's just pure. But when you're in those 400 sprints, you're in insane shape.
And then on the training, how much time are you in the ring grappling? How much time are you in the ring sparring?
I would grapple pretty much every day, like an hour of grappling. I would spar 3 times a week. So we did a lot. A lot of guys do like 1, twice a week. Now I don't think it's enough. We sparred a lot. For me, I didn't get hit a lot though, so I wasn't. If you're in there trading heavy shots, you don't want to do that 3 times a week.
Yeah,
you could maybe spar like more like movement or drills. Maybe one hard time a week where you're getting hit a lot. I didn't get hit a lot when I sparred, so it was fine. So spar 3 times a week, lifting 2 to 3 times a week. It was intense. Like I still train now. Like I'm in better shape than most people, but what I used to was insane. Yeah, it's part of me misses it, part of it don't. Part of me misses that training camp when you get it and you're just for 2 months you're just completely dedicated. You're just laser focused. It's sober, just focused. It was it's a good feeling, but it's intense and hard. A lot of pressure too going into those fights.
When you were training, did you ever have a situation where like you're doing round by round and then it's a different opponent every round? So he's at 0. His stamina is 100 and you have to keep fighting.
Yeah, we did that all the time. That was actually very common where you're putting new opponents in. Yeah. Like you usually be in.
I was one of those guys. So I was helping a guy train, and I would come in the second round, and like I have all this stamina, and then by the end of it, I'm gassed, and he's got to go do another round after that. Yeah,
no, and that's tough, especially if it's good opponents.
Yeah,
but there's times too, though. It's good to do both. You want to do that, but if you can have elite opponents, it's also good sometimes to have the same person for like 3 or 5 rounds. Yeah, because then it becomes like a mental battle. Like me and Nick would go 5 rounds sometimes. Could be like Madoff. We used to spar 5 rounds together sometimes because it becomes like a mental battle. If like let's say it's the 5th round and you've each won 2 rounds and you know it, then you go in there and it becomes like a real fight.
I think this is one of the most important lessons for people in life to be successful is this concept of making practice harder than the actual game. Mm-hmm. In the Marine Corps, they're the peak physical condition when they get out. You hear like the Navy SEALs. One of the things David Goggins talks about in his book is like when he goes through buds, everyone's in like peak physical condition because it's the most torturous thing. But you have a guy who's been in for 10 years and he's got knee problems and he doesn't have quite the same standard as he did when he first got out of buds. And so the thing is when you're talking about SEALs or you're talking about the recon Marines or whatever, their training needs to be harder than what it actually is when they actually get out into combat. And the same thing. So this is a weird analogy, but like I do the same thing with my clients. I make them go up and talk to 50 girls every night. Why? Because that's in a loud nightclub where everything is against them. The bouncers hate them. There's rich dudes who don't want them around. And then you're still able to talk to girls in a place like that. When it's harder, when you can bench press 300 pounds and you can bench press 200 pounds. So making practice harder than the actual game is like a really, really important key to success.
Agree. I remember when I was in that crazy win streak, a lot of my fights I'd go out there. Almost every fight was ending in the first round, and I'd feel kind of disappointed sometimes because I was in such phenomenal shape. I'd go out there and not even be fatigued, but then it's like, I guess you're doing all the training still. I'd be like, why did I do all that training if I just want to tap this guy? But I'm sure doing all the training was why it would be so easy.
How often was the fight easier than training?
The majority of the time. Yeah. There was a few times when the fights were just, but there was the occasional fight that was grueling, like a Dan Henderson. I mentioned him before. He dropped me twice in the first round. So I was just shook, so I needed to pull through on that. So there was a couple of these like grueling fights where it's like, okay, good thing. You need to do the training and hopefully you don't need it.
So I'm just trying to imagine in the, the biggest correlation I have is playing football and getting just dinged in the head like really hard. You get hit and you fall down and you get up. I would think there'd be like some feeling of nausea or like the part of your head is like swelling. But are you feeling any of that at the time?
The Anderson fight, I was seeing like doubles, seeing 2 of them. So I was fucked up, but I was just, that's the point in my life. I was literally willing to die, in a cage. And I just like, it was too big of a fight for me. I'm like, I can't lose this fight. So just keep moving. And then I slowly, after a couple minutes, started getting my vision back, the nausea. Wasn't really nauseous, I guess, but it's just the double vision, trying to be able to move. But it's just, I was just a pure will because I had trained so hard and I was ready for whatever. But I accepted like I'm not going to go down. He's got to kill me. Just stop.
Yeah. So the thing is, what's interesting to me is how you do the 15. You have a 15-fight winning streak, and then you go up against George St-Pierre.
Yeah.
Is it when you're fighting him? Does it feel like the final boss in a video game? Because you mentioned he is just a great fighter. Because
he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So it was surreal fighting him because he's a guy I looked up to for a long time.
Yeah.
It was also in Toronto, his hometown. Or he's from Montreal, basically his hometown.
Yeah.
60,000 live fans, which was the largest UFC fight ever at the time. I think one fight passed it since, but it's the largest attendance ever. And just having that crowd, super close fight, it was surreal. It's like, that's one fight I wish I could redo. I don't know if it would be any different, but it's like, on the judges' cards, he won the first 3, I won the last 2. And it's like, so part of you was like, damn, if I could have pushed a little earlier and stole that second or the third round, would have won the fight. But you can't redo him. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's the only guy that actually ended up becoming friends with after fighting him.
All right, so again, you fought several guys before, and now you fight this guy who is superior physical condition, great athlete, or whatever. What are you experiencing during the fight that is different for someone who is that excellent at his sport compared to the other guys that you're fighting?
He's just his distance and range is so good.
That's what I noticed as well. Yeah,
he has that phenomenal jab that keeps range. Has really good takedown.
It didn't feel like he was in there trying to brawl. Like he just had
his
defensive.
So
exactly.
He's not really a brawler. He doesn't take a ton of risks. So he was criticized for that some, but he's this phenomenal fighter. He moves so he doesn't really have any holes in his game.
Yeah,
I'd say if you could pick anything, possibly you could break him mentally.
Yeah,
and that's what kind of started happening at the end of the fight. That's why I'm like, fuck, I could have It's hard to do though. It's easier for me to look back and be like, oh, if I could have just pushed a little earlier. But when you're walking into that jab, the footwork, the momentum, the takedown, it's a lot easier to look back and be like, oh, I could have just done that and I'd have won the fight than actually doing it.
Yeah. One thing that was confusing for me is that you were in Strikeforce making more money. You moved to the UFC, make less money, and then you moved to another thing after UFC where you make more money. I think for a lot of people watching this, like the NBA is the best league in professional basketball. You also make the most money. Same thing with like EPL in or playing for like Real Madrid in soccer. Why is it the UFC you are making less money than you were making with Strikeforce?
Yeah, that sucks because I had to take a big pay cut, like less than half the pay. But I really wanted to fight GSP. For years.
Is he making less than half, or is it a situation like a salary cap where certain guys are just making ass tons of money, and then the guys at the bottom are just making?
The champs at the UFC make a little more money.
Okay,
and there's the fame of the UFC, so there's money off that. So it's tricky. That's why I said I'll take a pay cut and go to the UFC. And Strikeforce is massive at the time. The UFC doesn't have any serious. They have PFL, which actually pays good. A lot of guys are getting paid better at PFL. Again, but the UFC gets way more hype. So it's an unfortunate situation, but it's just so guys are willing to take less money for a bigger show because they want to be like the UFC champ versus the PFL champ, which it sucks they're not paying the best. And there is some backdoor money and stuff, but it should be more.
And then so you do that, you switch over, and then after, when do you decide to leave the UFC?
I did a few more fights. I mean, beat some other good guys too, like what's his name? Damian Maia, beat Tyron Woodley in his prime, did a few more fights, and then, I had a little falling out with Dana White, and I fought a little more at his other show. The pay was good, but at that point, I kind of just wasn't really that motivated to be fighting. That's when I kind of sit there and be like, okay, I'm just fighting for the money. So it's probably time to walk away. It's hard, after his fights with 60,000, then
of course
the pay is really good, but you're not it just doesn't have the same hype, so it's hard to really be interested.
Yeah, it's hard if you're not loving the game.
Yeah, why am I think my last fight I actually lost, and that's when I was a little banged up, and I kind of half quit, and that's how the realization. I'm like, okay, I was willing to die versus Henderson, literally. So if I'm not willing to die out here, I shouldn't really be doing the sport. It's too intense of a sport to be fighting if you're half-assing.
So there's this rivalry between Dana White and Jake Paul, and they go back and forth on social media. And Dana White's like, come into the UFC and fight. And Jake Paul, his response is, why don't you pay your fighters? Did you think that was fair? Like, what did you think about when he made that statement?
I mean, why would Jake Paul go in the UFC if he's making more money elsewhere?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And I think I think it's fair. I think the top
Do you think
guys,
his criticism was fair of Dana White?
I think so, yeah. To pay his guys more. I mean, the UFC is worth, $14 billion or something insane right now. And there are guys making a few million a fight in the UFC, but there's lots of boxers on small shows that no one's ever heard of making a few million.
Yeah.
So you get these guys that no one's heard, boxer no one's never heard of making 2 or 3 million versus a big UFC star making that.
What do you think overall about the celebrity influencer guy getting into boxing and making more money than the main fighter. Like I'm not sure if Mike Tyson didn't make more money from his fight with Jake than almost any other fight he's had, which is crazy because he's 57 years old. And I'm sure there may have been one or two fights where he made more, but that was a lot of money. And I'm just starting to question like the efficacy of boxing in general. And then does rising tide raise all ships? Does this help the UFC in the end? So I don't know, like, or does it make it more of a spectacle? And now we take these combat arts less seriously.
I don't think so. Some people make that criticism and think it turns it into a laughing stock and stuff. But I think people know.
I watched.
People know the difference between the two still. Like you know the difference. The regular person can tell that this is not the best fighters in the world. It's more of a spectacle. So I don't think it's necessarily bad. It brings eyes to it. And like you said, Tyson was in his 50s. But a bunch of friends kept being like, I want to bet on Tyson. I'm like, I want to bet the guy in his 50s. Like, Jake Paul's not a bad boxer. People don't want to admit it. He's not probably going to win a world title boxing, but he's pretty good boxer. He's like right under that level. People don't want to admit it because he's like kind of obnoxious, but he's a good athlete. He trains hard. He hires the best coaches. So he became a good boxer.
And the other part is you have to consider, well, you have a lot of boxers who fought in front of small crowds. If Jake Paul keeps fighting in front of the biggest crowds in the world, then those nerves that other people have, eventually they go away. Like what I'm saying, like what you said before is a great point. If let's just say his potential is to be, 80% of a great boxer. If he continues to fight the best people he can and train with the best people he can, and he continues to fight in front of 60 to 100,000 people, eventually he's now a more experienced boxer than a guy who maybe has more physical talent than him.
Maybe he could be like a top guy. My main criticism of him right now would be he's very picked his opponents.
Sure.
He's fought lots of MMA guys that are smaller than him and past their prime. So you're kind of picking your opponents with these good name fighters.
He's also talking about the damage that it's done to him, like mentally. Like he's actually starting to slur his words. Like he's mentioned that I listened to one interview where he was like, I'm starting to feel the punches in my head, and now it's like, dude, $40 million for one fight. So like, what's it worth to do?
He's made some money, so it's like he might not need to fight that many more times. He might look at back.
Well, he doesn't need to fight now. Like he's going to die a billionaire. Like regardless of what happens.
He probably will do a few more fights because I think he enjoys it, the attention. But if you don't need the money, it's kind of like why?
When Mike Tyson fought Jake Paul, they were going to do it in my hometown in Dallas. In Arlington at AT&T Stadium. First thing I did was look up the Texas Boxing Commission on whether or not they test for PEDs, and they do not. They do not. It was the first thing I looked at. I was like, so if I'm Mike Tyson, I'm on TRT, I'm on BBC 157, like I'm doing I'm doing stem cells, I'm doing whatever. And then my question was so I saw that, and then I realized no gi grappling. Also, they don't test for PEDs. So explain to me the whole Gordon Ryan phenomenon. He comes into your gym, you train him.
I actually went. No, Gordon Ryan. I actually went and trained. I was in New York. I stopped by his gym. He was being trained by a guy Gary Tonin, and then trained a little bit by John Donnier, which John Donnier fully took over his coaching. So I met him when he was like 17 or something. He was tough, but like I was like, okay,
you could beat him at 17, but then later
he was
on,
really good.
At what point does he pass you?
Man, it was like quicker than I thought. It was a couple years. He was like early 20s.
And there's no striking. This is just grappling.
Just pure jiu-jitsu. Yeah, pure jiu-jitsu. He's a little bigger than me, but he's just like, I think originally he wasn't bigger than me, but then he got like bigger. He's just a phenom, but he's like, I've never seen anyone get as good as he did. And he's the greatest grappler to ever live. I think now he's still in his 20s, and
he's 29 years old.
The greatest of all time.
And he's open about taking PEDs. He's humongous.
Yeah, he's jacked. He's just so good. But I think he gets a lot of shit. I think he's a good dude. Even once he started beating me in the gym, he didn't like get cockier. He still treated me with respect, like his elder and stuff. And I think he's like a great guy.
So this is another lesson that I think kind of relates to just success in business and other things. When you mentioned so you're in your mid 40s, he's 30 years old now, 29 years old, and he's still super humble to you.
Well, to me, but he's super cocky. A lot of people think he's cocky, but to me, he's still super humble. I think because to him, he looks at it as the pioneers before him, like me, GSP. So he's super respectful. Over the gym, he's actually respectful to everyone, but he talks a lot of shit on social media just because it's entertaining. But in the gym, he's super respectful, humble, great dude. He's had a lot of beefs with guys, but to me, I've seen nothing but good things with Gordon.
And the other thing that I noticed when people described him was he would see a technique and immediately, we talk about this in my program, speed of implementation, suspension of disbelief. He knows someone who's better than him. Maybe the technique was used on him. He knows the technique works. He doesn't waste any time. You said he practiced it 100 times, and then the next time you fight him, he's now using that technique to perfection.
A perfect example of this pisses me off, but I have this amazing guard pass I do. So the first time I trained with him, maybe first, second time, I did this guard pass to him just over and over. Passed his guard like 30 times. He was just pissed off, I could tell. But then, you know, I trained with him, maybe it was a month later. I think I was out of town or something. He used my exact same guard pass against me, and I didn't even teach it to him. But John Donahue, he knows the passing. He's good at watching. Taught Gordon my exact pass, and he's passed me with my exact pass. And Gordon's creative. He has his own passing system that he's created, but he's taken the one pass that I do and added it right to him. And he credited me. I wouldn't say this otherwise if he hadn't credited, but some tape he saw was like, he says like, yeah, Jake passed my guard like this like 30 times, and I was pissed off. So I learned this pass, the body lock passing.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's like the most successful people are a whore to what works.
Yeah,
they see something works. There's no ego involved. I'm just going to practice and master that thing that's better than what I'm doing.
Yeah, people need to put your ego by. If you see someone doing something better than you, some guys' ego get in the way and they don't want to learn it. But you can be like, oh, that one move doesn't mean. Sometimes you might be better than the person even, but they're doing one move better than you. It's like, let's take that better method and improve it. Like you said, you teach dating, right? Coaching. So I mean, there's a lot of psychology. That's something I learned women quite well too over the years. And you learn it's just small little things that make the difference. It's kind of weird like that. Like you can go from the exact same guy getting like no girls to tons of girls if like just the smallest little changes.
Yeah. I do some business and branding coaching as well. And like what I've noticed is the most successful guys, I'm talking dudes with no sales team doing $4 million a month, like crazy number selling a high ticket program or whatever. Whenever I talk to them, all we talk about is solving problems. There's no ego when it comes to any of it whatsoever. Whatever I have one guy teaching me to run ads to a webinar. I got another guy teaching me how to use CTAs to get a telephone, connect the opt-ins, and I talk to these guys, and then I see their Square like accounts, and these guys are doing $1 million a month, like $4 million a month, and I'm like, I don't care what I thought.
Yeah,
I'm doing this. Whatever works, I'm going to do this. And that requires humility. It requires a lack of procrastination and a high degree of humility. Jiu-Jitsu, because especially the grappling part is a chess match. I feel like there's a lot less luck on the ground, whereas there's
I agree. There's
standing
more luck
up.
with
There's
trading
more
shots.
variance, right? You might one punch, the lesser. I'm sure this happened several times. The lesser fighter wins
It happens
because
more standing than on the ground, 100%. And things are changing too. Like you mentioned, whether it's cells, jiu-jitsu, picking up women, what works is always slightly changing.
Yes. Yeah, there's an evolution to
evolving. You know, cell shit's moving quick with the AI and all that. Women are always changing. Like there's basic things that'll stay the same, but there's like little things that are changing, like lots of online now, and you know the approaching. Things are always changing. You have to like stay up with what works.
Well, I mean, actually, let's talk about this. Have you? I mean, you're in your how old are you now? You're
46.
46. So I'm turning 48 next week.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is over the last 20, 25 years, women are more flaky. Social media, like they're become addicted to their phone. Social media has made them just look at their phone all the time. And it's like it works for you and against you. Like when you have status, it's like you have 7 dates a week. When I'm in my 20s, I can't find a girl to piss on me if I'm on fire. Then later on, when I have a little bit of clout and I go on a girl's favorite podcast and she sees me on there, it's like effortless, right? So what have you noticed over, like, say, the last 20 years? Oh, one other thing, I don't see as many hot girls go to clubs anymore.
Dude, the club thing, you're right. There's like hardly any hot. That's what I was talking to a friend in Vegas. Like we used to go out and just randomly, like I'm not in the market anymore, but just randomly, no problem, pick up a girl every single night. You're in Vegas and you're looking around, there's like no hardly hot girls there.
I was on stage at a one nightclub with Dan, with Bilzerian, and he's like, dude, there's no girls here. Now, we're on stage, and behind us, there's 2 tables full of nothing but girls, but he's looking out into the
it's like nothing
into the GA, and I was like, nah, it's an exaggeration. And I look out there, and I'm like, no, he's right. There's no girls. It's nothing but dudes out there. And I was like, what has happened? And a lot of people are like, well, it's an economic downturn. I don't think that's it. Because if you go to the biggest clubs here, they're still packed.
Girls just aren't going out that much.
Yeah, I see you out all the time. We're on stage at XS. It's tons of girls there. But in the GA, there's not a lot of girls. And what I think it is, what my theory is, number one, the nightclubs are way more interested in money specifically. And so when the penny pinchers, when they're only interested in money, the way you solve for money is more men per square foot.
Yeah.
Because men make money.
Pay,
Ladies' night is awesome, but it's a loss leader, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, women get their validation through dating apps, social media, and that you even hear like Sophie Rain talking about, I made $84 million on OnlyFans. This is an important distinction. It's not just the money they make from OnlyFans. They're actually getting psychological validation from men giving them money on OnlyFans, which then makes them more difficult to have like an equitable relationship with, a give and take. And so I think that's another thing that's happened. And then those things have made women, I think, more difficult to get them out in real life situations. And then the opposite problem is men's overall testosterone levels dropping since the 1950s, an excessive level of video games, an excessive level of pornography, and then overall, just in general, we're on Zoom. Our meetings are on Zoom. We're not having in real life interactions.
Stuff, yeah.
And so I think these two things have led to where, like what you said before, I remember going out in Los Angeles in 2006 and just tens everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. And so easy to grab them because you could talk to one. If it wasn't working, just go talk to another one. Like you're saying earlier, make a guy talk to 50 girls a night. You'd be like, this one's giving me a little attitude. Just ditch her real quick. When there's so many, tens everywhere, you don't have to oh, better stick with this one. You're like, all right, I'm gonna ditch her and grab a different girl.
Yeah. When I tell my guy friends who are in their early 30s, late 20s, I was like, I used to go out and there were more girls than every guy at every single nightclub. And when you walked up, this is another thing. We used to do this in Vegas. The way you got a comp is you brought 6 girls. If you brought 5 girls, you didn't get a comp. That's how it used to work. And now it's not like that anymore. Like the standard for bringing girls to places is not there anymore. So I've noticed that the whole going up and talking to girls randomly, unless you're at like an awesome mansion party in Los Angeles, it's just not the same as it was before.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I said, I'm not out picking up girls anymore, but it used to be so easy to walk up to random chicks, and things have changed a lot through the online. I think girls are,
they're comparing you to the best thing they see on Instagram.
So I think it's either really easy or really tough if you're a guy. There's not much of a middle ground.
I think that, the middle class for men is shrinking. And then the other part is, as much as people hate social media, if you have one guy and he's got better social media than the other one, when you guys are when the girl is looking, she's not with you, the guy who has better social media is generating attraction while he sleeps. It's such a massive advantage. And it goes back to what I said before. I'm a 47-year-old U.S. military officer. I don't want to use social media, but I'm a whore to what works. And so that's why I do it.
No, you have to, like I said earlier, you have to adapt to what's working and what's changing. So you have to look at more like social media, because I haven't really used the dating apps, but I think a lot of the hottest chicks aren't on the dating apps.
Why would they be? Why would you need, if you're a hot girl, why would you need to be on a dating app?
Exactly. They can use Instagram or Twitter or these other things. They're not going to go like on Tinder.
Yeah. I have these conversations a lot of times with Dan. Dan has his new Sigma Society program, Dan Bilzerian. You and I have conversations over there all the time. How did you meet Dan? I remember the first time I played paintball. I don't know if you were there over at Dan's, but like, I don't think people understand. It's like this constant thing every week, kind of during the winter and during the fall, where we all go play at Dan's house.
No, I met Dan at Dragon's Lair, the gym.
Okay.
We like knew who each other were, but then we like talked, and then we ended up lifting together a couple of times, and then I think he invited me to paintball actually.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize what I was walking into. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna go shoot each other a couple of times. I get there, it's just like serious. Guys all warming up, like they have all their own guns, their own gear. I'm like, what the hell? And I just got smoked the first day.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta come back and get better, and just we were playing all the time for a while. Dan's like on a pro team now.
Yeah, people don't understand this. Like Dan, like it's the same thing what you were talking about before, where if you keep training with the best people again, like with the Jake Paul situation, Dan kept playing against the best competition every week. He would fly out to different places. He's got top tier equipment and a field in his house. And now he's legitimately
winning tournaments.
He's legitimately people don't believe me. He's legitimately a professional paintballer. Like he's at the top level of it, and it's just from doing like all the work.
Yeah. Well, I remember one day like a bunch of new people came.
Yeah.
And I hopped in a game, and I took out the whole team.
Yes, I remember this. Yeah.
You realize like, oh shit, you don't realize like, because everyone got so good together, we were all driving up. So you're just it's so hard to get multiple kills sometimes, unless you get like a lucky play. But then I was playing with beginners. I'm like, oh, getting all the angles, and you're like, oh, this is when you realize
the mistakes they make. All the time.
You realize like how much better than the brand new people. You're like, oh damn, I actually got pretty good playing with these people.
Yeah,
because the guys, there's a lot of guys better than me on the team. So you're like, oh shit, okay. When Dan's killing me, some other guy, Jay, some of these really good players. Then you play with new people, like, oh shit, I actually learned a lot. Yeah,
and then there's you and J-Rock are probably the two most aggressive guys. You guys are always down. So I guess this is another thing I want to ask you, man. You're 46. I have to go to like a physiotherapist to like get my body right so that I can go play basketball every week. And sometimes I'd leave paintball with I tore my groin there one time. I pulled my calf muscle. I've messed. It's a rough sport. What do you do to take care of yourself now? Is it cold plunge, BPC 157, TB 500? Like, what do you stem cells?
I want to try the BP 157. I haven't used that.
Great.
But I don't do as much my body as I should. I manage them holding up pretty good, but I don't train as hard as I used to.
Massage therapy, anything like that?
I do a little massage.
Yeah, that has been the game. The lacrosse ball, the
I
cold
do the
plunge,
lacrosse ball.
those have been nothing has been more of an ROI than the lacrosse ball.
Yeah, no, I use the lacrosse ball
Yeah.
some. I don't really like the cold plunge. I should though.
Yeah.
Do you think it actually helps?
I do. So not if you lift. So for me, because most of my training is weight training, it does. But like tomorrow, I'm taking my clients. We're doing 3 hours of basketball. After that, absolutely. You know, I'm turning 48 on Sunday. Absolutely. The cold plunge. It's the swelling, all your joints. It's vasal inhibitor, I believe that's the term. And then so you don't get all the swelling. And there's a bunch of other things with cold plunge. This is absolutely true. Like if you're gonna have a threesome and you have two girls coming over, like I overheat sometimes. If I do a cold plunge right before I have a threesome, bro, it's the best. I can go forever because I'm freezing in the beginning, and then by the end of it, I'm at a normal temperature. It is the best. You know the itis you get when you eat like a big meal and you kind of get that bloated feeling. The cold plunge completely gets rid of that.
I'm gonna try when I go to Dan. He's always doing it before he play paintball. He's like everyone's like, "Where's Dan?" Like, oh, he's cold plunging.
Yeah, I do it after paintball. Before paint, because if you do before paintball, you might pull a muscle.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think it does. He said it like spikes his was like serotonin or something.
That is absolutely true. Like because you feel like you got over something. It really is one of these things where when I was in the military, it was like I'm flying over Iraq. Like there's an adrenaline rush all the time. When I got out of the military, I was looking for different things. I did I did some skydiving. I did different stuff like that. But it ended up being for me. Basketball and like for Dan, I think it's the paintball. Like that is the adrenaline rush. Our brain can't tell that we're not actually being shot at.
Paintball is intense.
It is so intense.
I was not when I first went up there. I'm like, what the.
Well, paintball with Dan is intense.
Yeah,
I'm sure playing with like a kid's birthday party is different, but yeah.
A lot of guys have came over and I've seen like quit after a game or two.
Yeah.
One guy played one game. It was just like done. Some poker players.
Like in my mind, I'm like, I am in my late 40s. I want to keep this level of fitness as long as I can. So you'll notice, like, I won't step out of a single game. I'll do 15 games in a row because I know, like, I only have so much of this left.
Yeah,
and I want to keep this flexibility and this stamina for as long as I can.
I think you have to keep working out. Now we're older, we can't get totally out of shape.
Yeah,
the paintball too. Back to that real quick. But we've had multiple UFC champs there, like Marov's came and played with us, super aggressive. Duplessis. There's been a bunch of UFC guys that popped in and played.
Yeah, one of the ironies about paintball is being smaller is a massive advantage.
Yeah,
yeah. I have
some of these girls do pretty well.
Yes, yeah. Dan's girl, she's really good because she's like it's easier. And then some of those UFC guys you said are like 6'3", 6'4", and it's hard to get behind.
Yeah, it's easy to shoot the big guys.
Yeah,
you should really know how to disguise yourself.
Yeah, it is. It is one of those sports where being smaller is actually a pretty big advantage. So let's get into this. You know, the conversations we have with Dan. You've had some controversial takes. They've taken away. The first thing I want to ask you is taking away your blue check mark on Twitter.
Yeah.
What are some of the effects that you? So first off, what are some of the first controversial statements you had, and then what were the initial effects that you noticed?
I was critical of some of the things Israel was doing.
Yeah.
And with just a couple minor criticisms, they start being like anti-Semite.
Yeah.
So that makes you just kind of double down. If you're like accusing me of being something, which I have Jewish friends and shit, so I'm not anti-Semitic, but I don't think Israel should be controlling our country. And I think a lot of people are kind of seeing that this small foreign country has a sane amount of power over us. Like this, war that's going on, that we support them no matter what they do. We go to war with Iran for them. They seem to boss our politicians around. It just doesn't make it the amount of money we send them.
Yeah.
Like our government's shut down right now and it's shut down, but we're still sending money to Israel. We're $37 trillion in debt and we're just sending billions of dollars there, plus we're fighting wars for them. You see how Netanyahu lied to get us in the war in Iraq.
Yeah.
Just the more you dig, just the deeper it gets. It just seems like never ending. You see like the Epstein files, that's a Mossad operation. It goes on and on. Israel attacked, a U.S. ship, the USS Liberty. They've done false flags attack against us. The Levant fair in Egypt. They just got caught not long ago paying rebels in Pakistan to go in and do terrorist attacks in Iran. And they pretended like they were the CIA, so Iran would hear the CIA's paying Pakistanis to do terrorist attacks in Iran, and they just got caught doing this, and the news doesn't cover it; it gets blown over. There's a top spy threat against America. They're constantly spying on us. All they do is disrespect us, and all we do is keep giving them money.
So one of the things I thought was interesting is that you mentioned before. The first thing is like you don't hate Jewish people. But you're also tired of having to say that over and over again.
Exactly. You shouldn't have to say it. It's ridiculous.
And the thing I will say is, I look at this strictly as a military officer, completely dispassionately. If I question from a military standpoint what's going on in Gaza, that does not make me an anti-Semite, number one. And then number two, if I question the foreign policy, like for instance, I think you and I would agree the best thing for the people of Gaza would be for Israel to not be attacking Gaza. But I also think it's the best thing for Israel, right? Because it's made them, what was like 2/3 of the General Assembly walks out whenever Netanyahu gets up to speak. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, it is bad for Israel in general to be a part. It's almost just as bad for them because it's causing this massive, they're becoming a pariah state. And again, I want to say this again, like, I look up to Jason Strauss. You know Jason Strauss is the owner of Tau Group. I look up to Jason Strauss. I look up to Dave Grutman. Dan Fleischman's one of my really good friends. Sosnick, who was over at PBD's co-host, is one. I consider him to be a really close friend. It is not, for me, there's no discussion about Jewish people or Judaism in specifically, but the Israeli military, what they're doing, and the fact that the asymmetry of power, having F-35s. Do you understand? This is something, this is the least talked about, most insane thing to me. I don't think we should be selling F-35s to NATO. Do you understand how crazy they have the radar?
No, we should be keeping them for us only.
They have a radar cross section of like a pencil, and you're selling them to the Finnish. And now the problem is this: do you understand the Finns now have air supremacy over Russia, which is there's nothing. The Sukhoi 57s, there's nothing Russia has in their inventory to shoot down an F-35. The U.S. kept the F-22. Well, the F-22 is a faster. It's can go Mach 2, but it's also a stealth aircraft. But so I'm opposed to us selling F-35s to Germany, Finland, and like these other countries, and we sold them to Israel. Now, if you are completely 100%
to Israel, probably we say we sold, but really we're giving them.
Right, but the problem is if you give them to Israel, just so you guys understand, they can now bomb any Middle Eastern country, their capital, with total impunity, with taking zero loss and zero risk. I don't think people understand what stealth is because the Chinese have tried stealth with their J-20 aircraft and they're a failure. Like the Indians were able to pick up the J-20s. The Sukhoi 57 that the Russians have has been a complete failure. They haven't been able to use it because being able to produce stealth aircraft, there's only one country in the world that's even gotten close to it, and it's us. And so when I saw that, I was like, that is a massive asymmetry of power that actually I think makes them more of a target. Like that, and so
because they're just so arrogant. I mean, they went and bombed Qatar, which is the largest U.S. military base, is right there. They flew right past us, didn't tell Trump, and then bombed our ally right there, who we keep our military base there. It's like, what kind of disrespect is that with jets that we gave them? It's just insane.
But I just don't think people understand the difference between an F-16, an F-15, and an F-35.
I don't know the jets that well myself, to be honest.
Imagine F-15 and F-16 are fast, agile jets that most countries could not have any prayer of shooting down. An F-35 is like an alien spaceship from the movie Independence Day that you can't. You can literally.
I didn't even know all this.
With an F-35, it has this thing called a kill net where it actually can power and command drones that fly in formation with it. It's crazy.
How many have we given to Israel?
I don't know how many we've given. I believe right now there are. God, I want to say we have 1,000 F-35s and we've sold 1,000 of them. I believe that
probably a lot of them to Israel.
And then I believe 700 or 800 F-22s that we have in the United States. But we're done making F-22s. There's no more F-22s.
We'd be giving away our best jets. You'd want to keep some superiority. Because Israel seems to really be wanting to start World War III. They're just bombing everyone, just trying to the whole world hates them, which doesn't make any sense. Like you said, the whole world's going to turn against them. They're not going to be able to get supplies. I don't know what their end game is.
I just think the best thing and the other thing is I want to make this point specifically, and I was going to ask Dan this question too. When Dan first makes his first comments about Israel, the photograph that the picture he posts where he's getting his haircut. You remember the barbershop? That was the crossing the Rubicon.
When he really started going.
When he really started going there. I have a lot of Jewish clients who I'm close friends with, and they didn't know how to feel. And I'm sure probably the same thing happened with you.
I've lost a few of my Jewish friends. Some of them I'm still friends with, some of them not.
But that's the thing. It's like when you had, I'm sure you had a ton of Jewish fans throughout your hundreds of thousands, millions of fans. They probably didn't know how to feel. What would you say to them?
I just think it shows a lot that the kind of the point is they put Israel over America. So you have these Jewish guys in America, these are the ones that I've had falling outs with. If you're putting another nation before America, then you're not American. You should be living in Israel.
But I mean, at the same time, do you know Dan Fleischman?
I'm not
sure.
You
know Dan? I don't think that Adam Sosnick or Dan Fleischman wake up in the morning wanting to starve children in Gaza. Do you understand? Like we still have to make
though. I think about 80% do. So it's not all Jewish people for sure.
I think there's a lot of Israelis, but American Jewish people.
Be happening without American Jews. They're the ones that are making it happen because that's how they manipulate our government through these rich. And again, it's these rich Jewish billionaires. They're the ones that are the donors that get our politicians in. And there's guys like TikTok sale is a good example.
Yeah.
They pretended it was like the Chinese. They take it away and they hand it to a Jewish Zionist. Now they're like banning juice box, banning all searches. People are just sick of it. They don't want. We don't think Jewish billionaires should be controlling our free speech, our government. And it is American Jews doing it too. And again, it's not all of them, but there's lots of these American Jews that are pushing for this war. And that's a problem. And I don't get why it's just so out of control. It's turning the whole world against them, but they're just doubling down instead of being like, hey, maybe we should self-reflect and like stop starving children.
So speaking of the self-reflection, I will say this, and I'm curious if you agree with the statement. I do not believe that Israel recognizes the Armenian genocide if Dan Bilzerian does not go on Piers Morgan.
Yeah, it's like,
do you agree with that?
Probably, yeah.
100 years. No, there's people in Israel who've been trying to get them to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. But I'm saying there's Israelis who've been trying to get the Israeli government to do this. Why does it all of a sudden happen this year? Isn't that a little fishy?
That's a little
and then
weird,
you also understand Dan is Armenian. He's part Armenian. And so when you come to that realization, I truly think, because we were having dinner at Dan's house, and he's like, yo, look at the comments after I did this. And I look at the comments, and it's like all in favor. Even if
I think he was shocked. He thought it was going to crash his career.
I don't agree with everything, all of Dan's conclusions about that whole situation. But in this one case, when I'm reading the comments, if I am a member of the Israeli government and I'm reading these comments, I'm like, holy like it's 100 to 0. This
crazy,
is, and I do think that starts to lead to a domino effect where it's like, the rest of the world sees us in a certain place, and every like liberal democracy has recognized the Armenian genocide. And for those of you who don't know, basically Turkey, this is during somewhere around the time of World War I, they ended up killing like 300,000 Armenians. But the thing is, Turkey's defense for that is saying, no, we were just killing everyone who was against Turkey. The fact that they were Armenians, we weren't trying to pick them out. So because we didn't specifically kill, we're not denying we killed them, but we're trying to say is because we killed everyone, therefore it's not a genocide. That was Turkey's response. And because Israel is a trading partner with Turkey, Israel did not recognize the Armenian genocide. Then the United States did. And then now we get to a point where my question to you is, if you don't believe it was Bilzerian going on Piers Morgan, then why did it take 100 years? And why was it in the same year that happened? And then so that's something that I truly believe, even though I don't, there's other things I don't completely agree with. But in that case, I think for that specific thing, I think it was a wake-up call for some people.
Yeah, because they want to only push they don't want any other genocides to be talked about. Most people only know about that one. They don't know about all these other genocides, like in Cambodia, and like in Russia and China. Like these massacres have happened a lot in history, but they take the Holocaust and they want to prop it up. They want all other ones to be buried. Yeah, they use it as like a crutch to give them like, oh, we can kill Palestinians because the Holocaust. I think people are just sick of it. Their PR team is terrible. They recently got caught. Some leaked documents. They're paying social media people $7,000 per post to be pro-Israel. It's just insane. And it's pretty wild. They just took TikTok. The same guy, Larry Ellison. Him and his son are getting Paramount. They're getting, I think, was it Warner Brothers? They're trying to just take up all the information, and they're probably going to do mass censorship because they're losing the PR battle so bad that right now, I just heard the head of the FBI, Kash Patel, said we need to start. I saw the ADL say it, and then he repeated the exact same thing: is we need to start censoring these social media people, this anti-Semitism.
So let's switch subjects before I get demonetized.
Yeah, right. Good idea.
So the concept of censorship. So I went on CBS News interviewed me a couple of weeks ago, and when they interviewed me. This was before Charlie Kirk gets shot, and then when they air the episode, it's after Charlie Kirk gets shot, and I think. When they were asking me questions, and this had to do with men falling behind in general, and they try to affiliate me with Andrew Tate and different stuff and Andrew's my friend, but it was
different views.
Yeah, it was different views, but it was interesting to me, and I really do think that their conclusion about what that story was going to be changed once Charlie Kirk died, and then saw the entire response of Americans trying to say, hey, this is a function of free speech. And I think the part that I think a lot of people don't understand, there's people who defame me all the time. I think almost everything AOC says is idiotic. Yeah. But I don't want her banned, and I don't want her to stop talking because I don't know that she's idiotic unless she talks more. And so that's why freedom of speech is so important. And then the other part was all these people talking about, I hate Charlie Kirk, I hate Charlie Kirk. And I'm watching and I'm like, yo, he's I have this one speech of him like defending homosexuals. He's like, why do you care what people are doing in their home? Like he's talking about Jesus eating with the prostitutes and the tax collector. Very, very moderate, extreme, like commentary.
Not that extreme.
That was not extreme in the slide. I'm like, that's who you think the extremist is? And then I realized, no, what it is, it's Michael Jordan dunking on you over and over again. It's the consistent college campus tour where he just embarrasses one liberal after another. And that embarrassment as a liberal makes you angry. And so you call him an extremist and then you're happy when he dies.
I think it's crazy. And I disagreed with him on Israel, but I don't think he was a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to his events before. I don't think he was a bad person. So to want this guy killed in front of his, kids and wife, it's just evil of the people. It's just shocking. It's like, I'm a big believer in free speech, even though me and Charlie disagreed on some issues.
Yeah.
I think he fully had his right to free speech, and in some things I strongly agree with him.
Yeah.
On too.
So it from that point forward, then I tell my team, I was like, hey, I'm going to have Jake Shields on my show, and you and I have been friends for a while. This wasn't something I was worried about, but they were like afraid because they're like, yo, we're going to lose our payment processor. We're going to lose our. And by the way, if that happens to me,
I've still kept mine surprisingly.
Yeah,
So I think things are changing so much.
Yeah.
Like maybe a few years ago it would have been true. But
Yeah.
people are just sick of it, So they pushed us so far. Whereas a backlash, like
Yeah.
these ADL and stuff, are losing the power they used to have. They still have a lot of power though.
Yeah.
The ADL, the SPLC, they're all these Jewish organizations, which are the ones that are charged of censorship. They are going to try to reel it back in though. They still do it some, but they would take your payment process away.
well,
Like
this is exactly my point. If I have this conversation, you guys watch this, and in a couple of weeks I lose my payment processor, I lose my
exactly
point
why,
of sale. If all of a sudden my bank denies me or whatever for having this conversation and having to state several times that some of my closest friends are Jewish people, and I have not had an issue with Jewish people, and what that's not my specific. I know you and Dan have a different opinion, but for me, I see two different things going on here. But when I see that whole situation, then I know it's censorship. I've said this before. And I'm going to talk about the left in general here. One of the biggest political miscalculations I've ever seen was canceling all of Andrew Tate's social media accounts in the same hour.
It blew him up. Yeah,
Because,
so
exactly. If the Matrix conspiracy is that there's this cabal of liberals who are all working together to fight against, free speech, and then all of you take his account away within the same. He lost his Uber and his Lyft. Jesus. I was texting him. He lost his Uber and his Lyft.
See, that's insane. That was clearly a coordinated effort.
But how can you, at this point, how can you not say it's not coordinated?
No,
what a horrible miscalculation by these liberal-leaning social media platforms to all do this at the same time and basically prove the conspiracy that seemed like a right-wing nutty conspiracy. How did you all take his accounts away within the same hour?
Right, they proved his point.
They proved his point. That was exactly my point. So it's like one of these things where if I don't agree with you, I still think you have the right to speak. And so when I do the CBS News thing, they asked me, they're like, hey, Andrew Tate says some pretty wild stuff. Do you want to condemn his approach, even though you guys are friends? And I'm like, I'm not going to condemn his approach. Not only do I not condemn his approach, I want him to have a conversation with Scott Galloway on Chris Williamson. I want them to be able to talk to each other. And then we could get into the concept of gatekeeping, which I really loved, was having Nick F go on PBD this last week.
Oh, that was great.
I thought it was a huge door opening thing.
Shows you things are changing with
For sure.
censorship. People are sick of it, and the whole Israel thing is getting attacked. It's gone mainstream, so they can't regulate us the way they used to.
Yeah.
I haven't lost my YouTube, and I would have for sure lost that a couple years ago.
Yes.
I mean, I do cut some segments out, but things have changed so much that even Facebook pulled back. I haven't been in trouble on not Facebook, but Instagram, because they own Instagram too.
Yeah. That those things definitely are changing. But the other thing I thought was really scary is the gatekeeping. And this is somebody says something you don't like to hear, so you won't even have a discussion with them.
No, that's stupid. You should be able to talk to people you disagree with. And it only happens on one side, though. It doesn't happen with liberals.
It's exactly my point.
Can't happen with liberals. It's only certain conservatives. Usually ones are critical of Israel.
Yeah, and think about this. PBD gets excoriated by people on the right for his stance on Israel. He's somewhat pro-Israel because of his and I don't know this to be specific, but I know he was Iranian initially, and so doesn't have the best viewpoint of Middle Eastern politics or whatever, or traditional Islamic politics, the Sharia caliphate type of thing. And because of that, he comes off as pro-Israel. And then you read in the comments, and they're just bashing him.
Destroyed,
and then he was the one who had Nick on, right? And so I thought that was very open-minded.
He also had Dan on, which shows he does bring these controversies.
By the way, do you know who set that up?
Who's that?
Adam Sosnick hit me up. Adam Sosnick, who's Dan's or PBD's co-host.
Yeah.
He hits me up. He goes, "Hey, Pat wants to have Dan on, but it had not to talk about Israel. Had nothing to do with that.
Talk about
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's for
dating.
sure. And then so I messaged Dan Bilzerian, and I was like, hey, my buddy Adam Sosnick wants to know if I can send. I want to know if I can send him your phone number because PBD wants you on. And
Yeah.
Dan was like, yo, I like PBD. I think he's pretty cool. So I set that up so they had him on there. And then after Dan goes on and says all the things that he says that are very controversial, Sosnick, who is Jewish, by the way, hits me up and he's like, yo, I did not expect that.
Dan
your
went hard on that
your
one.
boy went hard on Israel. And I was like, yeah, it's like I wish you would have asked me. I would have told you
that
that's
was the first interview, I think, Woody shared
Yes.
his views.
because the same day or the day before he does Chris Williamson, and he doesn't talk anything about Israel there. And then he does, I don't know if they went to Dragon's Lair or whatever, but then PBD goes to Dan's house and then does the interview. And then afterwards, like it seemed like, and then it leads to Pierce Morgan. And then I think from there, you started to see a lot of other content creators at least feel freer about having this discussion, right?
Things have changed a lot. Like
Yeah.
I was early on criticizing Israel, but early on, I mean, well, I guess a little before October 7th, I was critical of them. You know, after guys like Nick Fuentes, who was totally banned and isolated.
Yeah.
So I started speaking. I think it was one of the earliest, kind of big names on Twitter, and it was scary. I did get attacked a lot, but I've just seen the change happen so much over the past 2 years. We're completely winning the information war. And it's because they have a multi-billion-dollar media machine. But we have truth on our side, and people can see that. They can see this all like highly coordinated, paying these influencers. It's just so obvious it's fake, though, and it's getting harder and harder for these influencers to get away with this shit. Like you look on Twitter, you see these influencers, pro Israel guys, like the whole comment section is just like, oh, you just got $7,000.
Yeah.
And that's U.S. taxpayer money that's paying them, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's we spend money to pay propaganda for Israel to push social media people. It's insane.
Yeah. The other part I want to talk about as far as the censorship and the way like sort of certain ideas are pushed upon us, I think it's madness that we're at a point. So the Bonnie Blue Lily Phillips thing, right?
God.
So Bonnie Blue has sex with 1,000 men in a day, according to her. And it's because Airbnb then like bans her from the platform because she used an Airbnb to do
disgusting.
it. And my question, and then my first question when I saw that was like, who is guy number 749?
Yeah,
Who watches 748 banging her, and then 750 is behind him. Like, what happened in his life to where he would accept going to do this? And then I started thinking, yo, Bonnie Blue might be the hottest girl he's ever going to have sex with in his whole life, right? Which isn't saying much. And then I'm just starting to like, what has happened?
Yeah, what's happened to make that normal?
Yes, what has happened to make that normal?
Those men need to be shamed a little more too. That's just disgusting. I couldn't imagine waiting in line with a bunch of dudes to have sex with that girl. It's just disgusting. So what? I think we were saying earlier, like so many men, I guess, are just getting like no attention from hot women, nothing.
Yes.
At all,
So what? From my understanding, it's like the bottom quarter or the bottom third of men just don't get to
a lot of guys aren't even in the dating market. It's
Yes.
like a lot of guys have just stepped out of it because they're so sick of. They say they feel like they can't get any attention. This is not even worth it to them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad, really.
Yeah, it is, and you see the manifestation of that, and then. Do you remember the Heatonist, that guy who eats the hot chips and he interviews people and they're like coughing because the chips are super hot?
I've seen that.
It's a really, really popular YouTube channel. He goes on one day and on Twitter posts a picture of his new girlfriend, which is a porn star, right? Mm-hmm. Then Adam22 writes back and says, hey, your girlfriend's is fire. And then right after showing that, which was kind of insulting, shows the pre-photo of him about to have sex with this other guy's girlfriend who's a porn star. And then I'm just thinking to myself, yo, this guy is around so many woke liberals that he actually, because that's what the woke liberals think. They're like, why are you shaming your star girlfriend? And by the way, I'm the last guy to shame stars. We're both, you and I are both friends with stars. It's that I'm not going to wife you up. I'm not going to date you.
You want to put on some stars, whatever, but you don't wife these girls up.
But you see this, and like he didn't get it because he's around so many woke liberals. He thought that this was normal, and then the entire world jumps on him, and he's like, oh. It like my instinct as a heterosexual man is correct. I probably shouldn't be dating a porn star, right? Yeah. And then there was just stuff like this that I see. Oh, there's another one where Jason Momoa is like shoving this boyfriend away and then holding the girlfriend like this just to be. And in my mind, like we're watching this, and I'm thinking he's not trying to be. He's around so many woke dudes that believe, no, you should let your girlfriend flirt with other dudes, have girls' night, have other guys touch them, be best friends with their exes. That's normal. And I just see the people who push what I just said, 2 million followers on TikTok, 5 million followers on TikTok. The guys who push any sort of masculinity whatsoever, 30 TikTok accounts gone. Just destroy.
Oh, they banned it.
Ban you.
Oh, I see. So it's pushed in the logarithm.
You know how moderate I am, right? When we have dinner, you guys make fun of me for being like the most moderate guy there. You can't look my name up on TikTok anymore. My hashtag for my name is I had 70 million views, and they just got rid of me.
I get buried on TikTok.
Just totally buried. And I'm like, this is madness that we've gotten to this point where it's like, not only are you teaching what's wrong, but when someone else teaches what's right. I'll tell you the best example. Rolo watched the Barbie movie because he wanted to do a review on it. So I bootlegged it and I watched it. And here's the thing. There's a part in the Barbie movie where Barbie tells Ken, I just see you as a friend. Okay, what you and me are talking to a girl and she says, "I see you as a friend." What are we gonna do? What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna make fun of her.
I'm not gonna make fun of her.
Any interest in friends
I'm gonna hook up with all of her friends, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna go my own way. I'm like, oh, you want to be friends? Good deal. I'm gonna go my own way. I'm not interested anymore. I'm gonna do my own thing. The Ken character, he does that in the movie, and he's made fun of for doing the right thing. He did in the Barbie movie. He does what you're supposed to do, and they call him immature and make fun of him for getting ripped, going and talking to other girls. That's what you're supposed to do, and he's made fun of it. And I'm just like, what chance do these 25-year-old guys have now if you look at social media for guidance?
Well, it's insane. Like, a good example, look back at the peak of my fame, right? I have girls constantly at my penthouse and shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes we text their boyfriend, like, oh, where are you telling them at? Like, oh, I'm telling him at your house. Like, what? He trusts me. Like, what?
He trusts me.
The fuck? Could
like,
you
he shouldn't trust me.
your
I'm going to have sex with you.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine your girlfriend texting you and be like, oh, I'm at this UFC fighter's house or NFL house? It'd be like, get the fuck out of there. And these guys are just like complete morons being like, oh, I trust you, babe. Even these girls would clown on their boyfriend sometimes. Like, yeah, he's an idiot. Like, I don't know why he like would let me come over here. It's like,
yeah, there's
they
two
want you to be a little bit jealous.
There's two things here. Number one, could your girlfriend cheat? Yes. I mean, it's more likely if you put her around other dudes, she might. But let's just say she isn't going to cheat. She still wants to date a man who has boundaries and can't be manipulated.
Exactly.
And you're just like, yeah, baby, I trust you. Just do whatever. And it's like madness, bro. No. And again, if we're talking about a girl I'm just hooking up with, or if I have my girlfriend and a girl we're having a threesome with, do whatever you want.
That's a different
have
scenario.
your wild, crazy feminist podcast. I don't give a shit. I'll come on your podcast. We'll have fun. Come on Access Vegas. But if I'm dating you, you're not going to
different rules.
You're not going to attack me. You're not going to accuse me. You're not going to exaggerate. You can ask me how I feel. You're not going to tell me how I feel. You're not going to tell me I'm in love with that girl or whatever. And you're going to be in full and complete alignment with what I do for a living. Yep. There's not going to be any. If you step on my dick when it comes to my job, we are done, bro. And that's the thing that I want. And I look at these other guys and they're like, why are you so insecure, bro? There's this one, we had a porn star on a couple of days ago when we had Access Vegas, and she's on there talking about like, my man needs to stay at home and wait for me, and I have sex with other guys on camera, and he needs to, and what I want, this is my favorite one, he needs to be strong enough to deal with the fact that I can have sex with other men on camera, but it doesn't mean anything to me. And I asked her, I was like, do you enjoy it? I was like, yeah, some of these guys are really good in bed. Do the other guys, when they're having sex with you, do they enjoy it? It's like, yeah. I don't. It's not just that I don't want my girl having sex with another dude. It's insulting to me that another dude would enjoy my girl, bro. And that doesn't make me insecure.
It's insane. No, exactly.
That doesn't make me insecure, bro. That doesn't make me possessive because I don't want other dudes touching my girl.
No, you shouldn't want another dude touching another girl. And I think girls want you to be a little jealous. They know if you let another dude touch them, you don't really like them. I think deep down, a girl will resent you more if you let another guy than if you fuck another girl.
Yeah.
Because deep down, they know biologically you can't love a girl if another guy fuck them.
Yeah.
But a guy could be in love and still fuck another girl. We're wired different.
There's definitely
girls deep down know that.
This is the way I try to explain it to people. Close your eyes and imagine you had a son and a daughter, okay? And your son, he's stranded on a deserted island and has to have sex with 17 beautiful women to get off the island. What would you say to your son after? Would you be concerned?
No,
would you be like, hey, what happened, man? How was it? Do you have a good time? You wouldn't, would you send him to therapy?
Nope.
No, he'd probably be like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
No, awesome,
now imagine you have a daughter and she has to have sex with 17 random dudes to get off the island. You're like, baby, like, let's take you to counseling. Like, what do you, because our mentality is different. We have 17 times as much testosterone as the average woman. It's very different for us. And so like, is it a double standard? Yes, it's an absolute double standard. But we're wired different, exactly.
No, we're just not the same. People don't get that. It's like you look back, like we could have 1,000 kids, a girl can't. So, and also we know for sure, I mean, the girl knows for sure, it's her kid. We don't. So I think this shit's like wired deep in us where you don't want your girl out being a You don't want to raise a kid that's not yours.
And if you see like a female MMA fighter, you could admire, man, that girl's very talented, but you're not more sexually attracted to her.
I'm not. Some guys like fighters, but I always try to avoid dating MMA fighters.
Yeah. And then if you see there's some crazy stats you should look up on domestic abuse. So the idea of, I ask people what percentage of domestic abuse is committed by men and by women. People are always like 70% men, 80% men.
I'd say the exact opposite.
It's 55-45
Okay.
for what's reported. 55% of the time.
Way more the opposite, because I've been hit by girls and never reported
that's
it.
exactly my point. Men do not call the cops or report it. The theory is, and it shows a very linear thing. And I heard Professor Richard Reeves, and he disagreed with this, but I actually do. I think it's probably 50-50. I think women hit men exactly as much as men hit women. And the reason why is because the highest levels of domestic abuse, lesbian couples. That's why I believe that. But here's the difference. When it comes to damage going to the hospital, obviously men are going to do way more damage. And of course, I'm not saying either one of it's normal, but men are shamed for, but to be fair, I'm not calling the cops either. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave the room.
And that's what I've done. Because I can't get a domestic violence charge.
That's exactly right.
Like, if you hit me, I'm going to fucking leave you. I'm not going to sit around.
Yes.
And if it gets tied to something, it could totally destroy my reputation, but it won't to a girl.
Yeah. It's like, I say, it's like getting into a fist fight with a homeless person who's HIV positive. Like there's no winning. Even if you win, you lose, right?
If you get arrested and a thing like that, you don't really hit the girl. If you go down, it just looks so terrible.
No matter what you do, you lose. It's like getting into a fist fight with a pile of dog poop. Like even if you win, you lose.
Exactly.
And so it's one of these situations where I've had women before be like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to hit me? You're going to hit me?" And I'm like, "I can't." And I leave. You're a you won't even hit me. I'm like, what? I don't know what your ex did to you, but you don't get to bring this trauma to my life, and I'm not going to jail. You're not worth me going to jail over. See you later. And that makes them.
That's why I recommend like that. Shit's girls get ready to do this. Leave right away, even if you do want to talk to her later, let her know you're never going to tolerate that again. And if she does it again, then actually leave her for good. That's what I've done when girls have done that. Just walk out of the situation right away. You don't want to get caught up in these type of charges. Get the fuck out of there. If a girl does it again, leave her. Yeah.
This is look, I got 3 questions for you, and then we'll finish up here. The first one is the most misunderstood thing about you.
About me, I'm a really nice guy. I don't know.
I agree. I agree.
People think I'm crazy. Sometimes on Twitter, I could be a little, I like to rally people up. It could be fun.
Yeah.
Piss people off can be fun, but in person, I'm always nice.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Second thing is most underrated historical event, like people don't recognize. Most underrated historical event. And this could be anything from antibiotics, the transistor, anything like that.
Oh, that's a good question. Antibiotics is actually a good one. I'm not a big fan of modern medicine.
Yeah.
But I think antibiotics is by far the best modern medicine.
You look at antibiotics in 1937 and then the explosion in population that happens.
I think it's way overused, but it saves so many lives. And that's what made people just start trusting all medical stuff. And a lot of medical stuff's bullshit, but the antibiotics is actually truly life-saving.
When you think about the number, I want to say during the Spanish flu, 1919, 60-something million people. Now, that's a virus. That's antibiotics. But the number of people that died from bacterial infections during the trench warfare in World War I was staggering. Way more than dying from getting shot by a bullet.
It's these infections when you can't get clear with antibiotics. So antibiotics is absolutely a miracle.
Yeah.
People way overuse it when they have like a cold and shit. But like out of any other, that's what's made people just start to trust all the medicine, I think. Once antibiotics came in, started saving so many lives, and people just started taking whatever. Yeah.
What's an uncomfortable truth that you believe in?
Comfortable truth.
Uncomfortable for other people.
I don't know. I'm sure there are some. I'm trying to think. Some of the stuff with women, the reality of, you better not overtrust a girl. Don't let her around these. I've just seen it from the perspective, which you have too, with the guys at the top. When you see how women are, don't let your girl in those situations.
But there's no bitterness. We just understand that's how
we're
they
not
are.
bitter. It's just you understand girls' nature.
Yeah.
That's why you don't allow your girl to go hang out with the. Because I know, guys like, I can sleep punch any girl I'm around. I'm not the only guy that could do that. You're naive if you're like, oh, I'm the only guy that could pull this off.
Do you know the guy you need to be worried about? It's the dude like me. I'm not trying to steal your girl, but I don't even hit on your girl.
Yeah.
I take your girl on stage at a nightclub, and I don't even hit on her. And she's watching other girls flirt with me, and the girl's like, I want his attention. I need his validation. Basically what Dan did for years.
Yeah.
He would have 19 girls there. He wouldn't hit on any of them, and they're like fighting with each other for his validation. That's the guy you should really be scared of. The creepy photographer who hits on your girl. You know what I'm talking about?
They're so creepy, the photographer.
The creepy photographer or the super try-hard club promoter
get laid,
who hits on your girl, you don't have to worry about him because women deflecting male advancement, they're pros at it. It's Kempo, Jiu-Jitsu. Like they know why.
They
It's
want to
judo.
chase you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get in that situation, but if you can, it becomes so easy.
Yeah.
There was a time in San Francisco where I was just sleeping with so many girls, I started to get a reputation for it. I remember being offended at first when people grow up like, oh, I hear you're like a player, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that can't believe people are hating. But then I realized that just helps me.
Yeah.
When girls are constantly seeing you, a girl would come up and be like, oh, gross. I always see these different girls. At first I was offended. Then I realized like, oh, this girl wants to sleep with me. That's why she's coming up. She's coming up to tell me that I'm disgusting because she wants to sleep. She wants me to give her attention to sleep with her.
People only talk about things that affect them, right? You don't hear women saying, man, this overweight homeless guy, I'm tired of him me all the time. They don't ever say that, do they? It's always this good looking rich guy, I'm tired of him. They complain about things that affect them. So when they call men boys, it's because they're attracted to him. It's not because they're disgusted by the way they feel about the guy.
That's
right?
100% it. They're disgusted. They want to fuck you, but you're with a bunch of different girls. So they don't want to feel that way. Like so they don't know their own emotion sometimes. They're like, oh, I don't want this guy. So all girls will tell you that they're not attracted to the guy with all the girls, but that's a lie. Because I've seen, I've been in both sides where I'm getting no girls and getting tons of girls.
Yeah.
When I'm getting no girls, it's like impossible to get girls. But when you're getting too many girls, you have to fight them off.
I would love for you to read some books on evolutionary psychology. I think you'd be shocked because it's actual study data that it's going to agree with a lot of the stuff that you said.
I like to sit back and observe things, and I've just observed how women react. So I've picked up these little things they do, what they're attracted to, what they're not, what works, what doesn't.
There's a study that I found. I'm going to make a video on this, and it's going to be very offensive to a lot of people. And the study is basically shows that men who show that they have a lot of women around, actually that effect generates more attraction in younger women with lower body counts. Like, what? How does that make sense? So just imagine if I got into UFC and I didn't know how to, I didn't understand MMA, I'm going to look for people who are better than me. I'm going to look for cues from them on what to do instead of just doing trial and error. If I'm a woman, if I'm 21 and I've never been with a dude before, I'm going to look for cues for other high status women to see who they pick. And so they basically show that mate choice copying gets you women with lower body counts.
No, it's interesting because people think like all the girls I'm sleeping with were like, yes, that's true in some cases, but tons of these girls I was sleeping with weren't at all.
Dude,
so I think
they don't believe. Bro, I tell people this all the time, and they don't believe me. They think the male stripper only sleeps with.
Yeah, I've seen that so firsthand that I've slept with so many of these good girls, a bunch of girls that were virgins, or one guy. Obviously you can't always believe a girl's body count, but you could just tell the girls that aren't, and those girls are attracted to the guy too. Like basically, the girls are almost always attracted to the same guys. Yeah,
because men being able, so it's like the example I try to use is like Margot Robbie and Wolf of Wall Street. The guy who slept with 1,000 girls still thinks Margot Robbie's hot, and the guy who's a virgin also thinks she's hot. So that you could do the same thing with women. The guy who's like super and charismatic, the girl thinks he's attractive, and the good girl thinks he's attractive. And so like people don't understand that. They think I need good girl game, and then they see
it's the same.
And then they see the MMA fighter who's like tatted up gets the good girl, and then it's like, no, it's not good girl game. It's just attraction.
The game's the same, 100% agree. And some people think it's like you hit on different girls different. That's just not true at all.
Exactly, bro. So your mouth to God's ears. I tell people this all the time, and they don't believe me. When you're attractive to women, it's just as many girls who are very innocent as you get the women who are sociosexual. The words are sociosexual and sociosexual. Yeah, sociosexual and restrictive. You get just as many restrictive women as you get sociosexual, and it's confusing for them because they want to believe that the player only gets the and it's just not the case.
You're the first person I've said this because I've had people like not believe me before. They think like these girls, they must all be. But like, no, it's not the case.
Dude, my ex was 20 years old. She from Frog Level, Arkansas, and had one boyfriend in high school. Like then when I was with her, and people can't believe it.
People always do that to me. They don't believe that like these. They think like all the girls must be sleeping with you. That's just not the case. I'm glad you've noticed that. And like obviously the stuff will still, I've slept with a ton of too. I'm not going to pretend like I hadn't. Yeah. I'm not going to lie about that. But the girls I was dating were never those ones. I have to. So my editor, he has to take out every single offensive word and we're gonna bleak out like 400 words in this one. Yeah. So you started your podcast. What's it called again? Fight Back.
Fight Back.
You can listen to Jake Shields or Fight Back.
Why'd you start it, and then what have you done with it so far?
I just think because I was a little disappointed with some of the other podcasts out there, what they're talking about. So if you're disappointed, you could about something, or you could start your own. So I figured I'd start my own and push more of these controversial issues people aren't talking about.
I think there's one other thing, and that is people can't take you out of context if you do an hour-long podcast. Like I think that for me, that's why I started, because no one can take you out of context if you have a full 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, if you sit there and listen to someone in long form versus short form, it's totally different. Versus if you're sending a few tweets or quick little like takes. Versus you sit down and have a conversation, you get to know people a lot better.
Awesome, man. Where can people find you?
YouTube for now, Rumble, on Twitter, jakeshieldsajj, same Instagram. I think it's just Jake Shields. Yeah. Those are the main places.
Have you noticed more growth on Rumble or YouTube?
A little more growth on. I have more followers on YouTube, but some of my videos get good views on Rumble too.
Yeah.
I think maybe less people follow you, but some of the videos, some do better on YouTube, some better on Rumble.
Yeah, incredible, awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming out.
Thanks
I'm
so
really
much.
glad we got to do this. Hopefully, I can come on your
Yeah,
show.
you'll be
Then I can really be open and honest, and
yeah,
I
we
can
do.
tell the truth when I go to his show because I'm not going to lose my
Right, yeah.
monetization when I go to his show. Man, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. Remember, I said last week I want to end the gatekeeping. So this is an example of that. Like some of my friends were like, I can't believe you're going to have Jake on. He's so controversial. No, we've got to stop the gatekeeping. You have to stop saying because I may have some disagreements with someone, therefore I won't have a conversation. There was a time back during the Cold War where there was a red phone that was in the White House and the Kremlin because they understood basic psychology. When we stop talking, that's when we go nuclear. If you ever see people, the man and the woman both hired divorce attorneys. The first thing the attorneys do is have them stop talking to each other, and the divorce becomes more and more nuclear, becomes more acrimonious. We have to keep having these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, even if they're people you don't like. That's what Charlie Kirk was doing, and it was pissing people off because he was showing some people that they were right and showing some people that they were wrong. So no more gatekeeping. I appreciate you guys being a proponent and a supporter of free speech in any form, and I will see you all next week.